Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of SAP Security. In this session we will be discussing about Security Audit Tool. Basically in this lesson we will describe the configuration and use of Security Audit Log. This Security Audit Log provides example of how to use the log and what to look for when you are reading this Security Audit Log. Additionally, we will also see the alerts, how to set the alerts based on the Security Audit Log in CCM. In the coming lesson, you will learn how to create RZ20 monitoring and alerts in the next lesson. Again, that is based on the Security Audit Log. Let's say while auditing your system, you wanted to know, let's say you wanted to start by discovering what type of actions were performed or what type of actions happen in the system. That maybe you are interested to see logged on users and maybe logged on remote users and what kind of transaction they run. For this, Security Audit Log can assist you to discover what activity occurred in the SAP system. However, in a bigger system it will be more complex. In using the Security Audit Log, you can configure or you can customize the activity you would like to monitor or the users you would like to monitor. You can customize it like this. Using the customizing, your investigation or that can be narrowed down to a specific problem. Now you may have it in your mind, okay, we have the Security Audit Log, but we will not review the Security Audit Log every day, which is the fact. We cannot go back and start running the Security Audit Log in a bigger system that for every day what is going to happen. But for that, as I said, there is something called CCM alert monitoring, that this is based on the Security Audit Log. We can configure the threshold in that CCM that we will learn in the coming section. Okay, before we get into that in detail, that let's see the path which is available in AAS. So we will also see the audit logs as well as the CCM monitoring paths in AAS. So let's log in our system. Let's log in by using the user which we have created. Let's go to the client 800. The menu path is you go to the top security report and go to Security Audit Log Assessment. So if you click here, then it will come here. Okay, in here what you will do is you will read the Security Audit Logs. Transaction code SM20. You can either call the transaction directly, otherwise if you use AAS, then you can use this menu path to come here. And the second one we would like to see is the parameters with documentation. That is, if you go to system configuration and you go to parameters, then system parameters with documentation. Double click here, then it will bring to this one. Here you can see what system parameters and the documentation for this. The transaction code RZ11, you can directly come here. If you go to status, you can see the transaction code is RZ11. So if you type in RZ11, you can directly come here. Otherwise, if you use AAS, then there is a menu path to find. And the next one what we will do, we will see is display SAP directory. This also in the system configuration. You go to operating system, display SAP directories. This will show you what are all the directories available in the OS. So this is also quite important, that you can directly access, see what is available in the OS. Let's say this is our profiles. You can see these are all our profile parameters which is saved. You can access the OS directly from here. So the transaction code for this specific menu path is A11, which is a very famous transaction. Yeah, A11. And if you type in the A11, you can directly come here, otherwise you can use this AS menu path. The reason why I am showing the AS menu path, it may be interesting for you to see whether all this collection of information is put into one AS to start your investigation, to start your to make your audit quite easy, though you don't need to search for each transaction codes. The next one we would like to see is about CCM monitor. If you go to system configuration, I think it is comes under system. Yeah, CCM monitor. This is RZ20. You can go to the system monitor from here. Yeah, RZ20 is a transaction. We will come to the each of this transaction one by one. Log off. So first is introduction to Security Audit Log. The Security Audit Log is designed for auditors who need to take a detailed look at what occurred in the SAP system. By activating this audit log, you keep a record of all those activities you consider relevant for auditing. You can then access this information for evaluating this audit analysis report. The Security Audit Log records the security related changes to SAP system environment. For example, change of user master record. Information that provides a high level of transparency. For example, successful and unsuccessful logon attempt. This all gives you a transparent that how many attempts people are not able to log on, this kind of information. Then let's say the information that enables the reconstruction of series of event. For example, successful and unsuccessful transaction starts. So from this you can have a transparent information to have a trend. How does the logon process is working? How many incorrect attempts has happened? How many successful login transactions has started? How many unsuccessful transaction starts? This will give you an idea of the entire overview of the system. Now let's have a look into information in security audit logs. Here I would like to mention these are all the only information that you can get. Generally, whoever I face in the field, people have a tendency that okay, if you enable security audit log, everything is going to be logged. No, you will not have everything logged in SAP security audit log. The information you can get from security audit log is quite limited. That gives you a very high level overview of what is happening in the system. If you want to drill down to the changes, you have quite a lot of audit logs, quite a lot of logs which is available inside SAP system. We will also see that in detail. So you can get that information in collection with audit logs, then you can get the whole overview of system audit log. So let's say first one is successful and unsuccessful dialog attempt. So whenever there is a user logs on to the system, that is recorded in the audit log. So we know okay, this particular user logged on which date and what time. This we can find out. And unsuccessful logon. So let's say some user tried to log on but they couldn't log on. So the some incorrect long password or something. So the unsuccessful logon also quite important to see how many unsuccessful attempts are made in our system. The next one is successful and unsuccessful RFC logon attempts, because RFC or logon also is very very important. We need to record how many successful logons are made or unsuccessful logons are made from an RFC destination, from a remote system. The next one is RFC function calls, that is RFCs to function modules. So it will give you the RFC detail to the specific function modules. Then next one is successful and unsuccessful transaction starts. So we can get the information what is the transaction which is started by this user, okay, and unsuccessful transaction start also, so that we know what is the transaction being executed by the user. But if you think what was changed, let's say you go to VA01, you in the audit log you will get, okay, this particular user 001 started VA01, but what is done inside VA01, that will not be available in audit log. That will be available in your application log or in your transaction log, which will have the detail of what was done in the VA01, what documents was created. When you create a new document in VA01, that it will have the date and time stamp. So when you run a report of from your VA01 or VA03 to see that this particular time what are all the documents was created or changed by the specific user, you get it from your application. The next one is successful and unsuccessful report start. Same like transaction, you will also get it for reports. And change to user master record. This is logged properly. Let's say when you change anything in the user master record, that will be logged in the audit log. And next one is changes of audit configuration. That is the audit log configuration. Let's say somebody changed the audit log, then we need to record that as well. For example, I am a security administrator in a SAP system. I can go and disable the audit log and do some log on and do the transactional whatever it's required and enable the audit log back. Then we need to record the changes in the audit log so that we know, okay, this audit log was changed by which user and what time what was changed. So that also will be recorded in the system audit log. Now let's discuss about the architecture of security audit log. So it is very important to understand the architecture of security audit log. As we know, the security audit log keeps the record of the security related activity in SAP system. The information are recorded in each application server on a daily basis. So based on what is the control settings or what information we would like to save, based on the filter that informations are captured whenever that kind of events occur. As we seen, the events like say log on, when successful log on, incorrect log on, these are all called events. We call this event. When this event occurs, SAP knows, then these events are recorded in the audit log as a file. This will be saved as a audit file, audit log file, and this audit log file again read by CCM alert monitor. So when the threshold is met, then the alert is sent to the CCM monitors. So each application server will have its own audit log. Again, this audit log is again a raw file. It is very important that we understand the architecture so that we can configure this audit log in a proper way. Let's say if we enable audit log for all user or for all event in an SAP system, this can have an impact in your server. As I said, it's a log file which is a raw file saved in your operating system. It's not saved in a database. So this will have an impact in the SAP system. So we need to understand the criticality of the whole SAP audit log. Also we need to understand the architecture of this audit log. So as I said, whenever there is an event occurs, so it will be sent to the SAP. So the SAP, based on the filter, this is required to be logged, then it will send the trigger to the audit log and it will save the log in the operating system. So each application server will have an audit log file. From this audit log file, then the CCM alert will read this file and make the alert mechanisms. So we can filter these events, and we can, the events what we have seen before in our previous slide, these are all the information which is saved in the audit log. Then we can specify what information is required, which client we required, and what users we required. As I said, the informations are is saved in the operating systems. The architecture is such a way that every day there will be new audit file which will be created, and these audit files will not be overwritten. Yeah, so it will be creating new audit files. So the information which is saved in your operating system is going to be quite huge. So every day for each application server you are going to have one audit log file. So and this audit log file is not overwritten, and it will not be deleted from SAP also. SAP will not delete these audit files. So you have to go manually go and archive these files to a different location. Otherwise this is going to pile up a quite large number of space in your SAP system. So there is a separate transaction called SM18 to do this archiving of or deletion of old audit logs. So using SM18 you can go and start archiving the old logs. So once in a while, so it is important that you go and archive these files, otherwise this can occupy quite a lot of space in your operating system. Okay, the next one what we are going to see is audit fields and the audit records. So what are all the audit fields we have and what are all the audit records we have? This is very important to understand this. The audit fields are located in the individual application server. So you can select audit fields on individual application server. You define the name and the location of the files in a profile parameter. Like say we have some profile parameters, we will also see the all profile parameters related to audit log in the next slide. And these files we can define in the profile parameters for each individual application server. Each application server have its own files, so we can define that in the profile parameters. Let's say when an event occurs, let's assume that needs to be audited, the system generates a corresponding audit record for the audit message and writes into that file. That is the audit record which contains the following informations, like the event identifier, it's a 3-character code, and you have the SAP user ID as well as the client, which client this event has occurred, then the terminal name. The terminal name means the computer name, then the transaction code, that transaction code which this user is executed, and the report name, what is the report they run, the time and date when the event has occurred, and the process ID of the specific process, and the session name, and some other informations. We will see the total informations what we have in our coming slides. And the next one is the instant parameters. Let's say there is quite number of parameters which is related to audit log. First one is RSAU/enable. This enables the audit logs. We will see in the system later how to enable this audit log, and we will also enable this audit log and try to run some events. The second parameter is RSAU/max_disk space the local. This defines the maximum space for the security audit log, and these parameters are very important when you are enabling audit log, that you have to specify the parameter based on the size of the system and the usage of what you are going to filter, what you are going to audit. Then you need to define all this one very clearly, so that in the long run this will be consistent. Then RSAU/max disk space per day. This defines the maximum size of a security audit file per day. This is an optional. You can define it if you wanted to increase it. If you can still increase it. The max_disk space per file. This one defines for a single security audit log file what is the size of that audit log file. And the selection per slots, the number of selection slot for audit log, then how many slots we can have, like this number of slots. So we will see that in detail when we are configuring this our audit log system. These are all the related parameters for audit log. The next topic is configuring filters. So in these filters, we can configure what needs to be audited. For example, here let's say we have filter 1 and filter 2. This is called the slots. We seen in our previous slide some parameters. Let's say we have RSAU slash selection slots. This is a number of selection slot for security audit log. By default this is 2. We can increase the selection slots. This is the slots, this is the parameters which is related to this number of slots. So why it is on parameters? Because this also going to have an impact in your system. So how many selection slots we need to have, that we need to define it first. So based on that, then your audit log file also you can configure it. On the selection slots, that means which is called filters. In this filters you can filter what you want to monitor. This is very important to understand this. So right here we have client. We have also seen this in our previous slide. You can filter based on client, which client you wanted to filter, and which user. You can define the users which you want to filter. Here we say okay, all client, all user, all activity, all events. Okay, actually this is not a very good example for your production system. If let's say your system is so big, now if you filter it like this, your audit log is going to be really huge. So be careful filtering like this. This is just for just a screenshot for your understanding. But in an actual scenario, that you will filter it for specific client and specific users. Don't filter it all, even though if you filter it all for specific activity, whatever you would like to do it. Okay, if your business says that okay fine, we can log everything, we have enough space, but we need to have everything, there is some sensitive data, you want to log everything, then it's fine to do that. Okay, otherwise what we can do is we can specify it for specific client which is on productive system, and specify who is this critical users. Some sensitive users which is on shared services will start with shared services, or yes something underscore. We have a naming convention like that, then you can say yes underscore star, then you filter this many audit classes. Like this you can classify it. So filter as much as possible to reduce the size of the audit file, because it's not only the size of the audit file, and you are going to write all these events, all these triggers into the operating system. It will reduce your performance of the system. Normally what happens, as you know, in SAP system, every transaction what you do, it has a proper path. It will goes to your user buffer, from there it will go to work processor, then it process it, it goes to the memory, then it will go to the Oracle database. In the Oracle database also it stays in the memory. In the collected everything, it will have a commit statement, it will write into the database. Once you write in the database, then it goes to your operating system database file. So there is lot of process in between when you do a normal transactions and get to save it into your database, and the database also saved, managed very well. So effective disk reads in your normal SAP transaction will be quite different than this one. This one is like directly you are going to save it in a raw file, in kind of text file. So this will that's the reason we need to stress this point very clear, that it's going to have a impact in the system. In generally also, let's say if let's say I'm an auditor, I will go and say okay log everything, but in that front also you need to understand, okay, otherwise you again the customer is going to come back and say okay, you told us to log everything, finally now we have a problem. That also we have to be careful. Even though if you are a consultant, if I am the auditor and say okay they log everything, then should be able to explain okay this is going to have an impact, and these are all my critical transaction, and these are all my critical users, so I will going to log only this one. Then have a proper documentation for that and monitoring policy. So this is about first column, selection criteria based on client and users, and the second one is audit class. We have seen we can log the logon of the user for dialog logon, RFC and CPI logon, and the RFC calls and the transaction started report started and user master change and the system and other events. Generally what happens is in all clients, all users, the RFC logon and RFC calls are logged permanently for all client and all user, because this is some informations that which is coming from an external system, that you do not have a proper logging mechanism for this, or you don't know what when they logged in and what they called. The dialog users is anyway it's your own user, you are identified with different another mechanisms which are all these users, and their transaction logs also somewhere it's saved. So most of the cases, all client, all users, RFC logon and RFC calls are recommended to log in all clients and for all users, because that is the information which is very critical to identify. And other information again based on what you like to monitor. Let's say external users, then we need to monitor all. Then if it is a critical user, some kind of emergency users, then you need to log in this kind of information. For example, emergency user, if you have a concept called emergency user concept, that you have one user which has lot of authorization like SAP all, that you distribute this user to different consultants to fix some major issues, you should log all the activities done by this specific user. In that case, that particular user will have audit class enable all events which is enabled. So okay, next we will see configuring security audit log filter. In this each audit class also you can record the specific events of each filter. For example, here transaction says not critical, the transaction started which is non-critical. If you still wanted to include, then you can include it. Then next one is transaction locked. As you know, you can lock and unlock transactions, so you can also lock that one. And start of transaction, this is again a critical one generally which is locked. So we can filter it, and we can define each audit class what you would like to record. Then we have something called audit profile. This audit profile is like you can have different kind of profiles which is created based on like your filtering criteria, what we have seen in our previous slide. Like this, you can create different filter criteria. All together you can create a profile, and one profile will be active at a time, so you can activate that specific profile. We will see that later, how to activate. Then dynamic filtering, this is for filtering dynamic events. That means you can dynamically enable this filter and disable this filter. And this is for defining filters. Okay, let's have a look into our system, then we can understand these screens better. First, let's start with the parameters. Let's go back to our presentation and check the parameters. Okay, the first parameter is enabling. Copy this. To check the parameter, the transaction code is reset 11. Then put the parameter and say display. Okay, here it says at the moment default value is 0, then profile value is 0, and the current value is also 0. Then as you know, you can go to the documentation and gives you the detail. Okay, it says it's for enabling security audit log. 0 means audit not activated, 1 means activated. At the moment it's 0, so we need to make this as 1. For this, okay, let's go back to reset 10. Reset 10. Then select the profile. You know there is 3 different profiles. First one is the default profile, then the startup profile, and instant profile. The startup profile is to start up the system. Then the default profile, which is applied to all the application servers, and the instant profile is to the specific application server. So let's go to the default profile, then select extended maintenance and go to change. Okay, then I'm going to create a new profile parameter. Say create parameter, this one, parameter value I'm going to make it 1. Okay, now go back. Sorry, we did not save the changes. You want to save it? Yes. Okay, so now we enable the security audit log. Now if you go to reset, okay, yes, I wanted to save it. Now if you go to, yes, want to save it, reset 11, let's put the profile parameters. Once we have changed the parameters, now we need to restart the system. In order to activate this parameter, we need to restart the system. So before that, let's have a look into the other parameters, whether this is all fine or not. So otherwise, whenever you do a parameter change, you consider all the changes what you are going to do at once, then you do the changes, then restart the system once. Right now we enable this one. Then let's have a look into the next one, the maximum space for security audit file. So right now if you go to display, let's have a look. No, this is not an active version. Active version is 11. Okay, we already enabled our parameters. This is 1. Okay, then let's go to R is at 11. If you check our previous parameters, it will be still saying 0 because we have not restarted the system. Okay, let's have a look into the next parameters, whether do we need to change it. Okay, now this one says the maximum space for security audit file. Now it says 100 MB. Okay, now if you say M means megabytes, yeah, so 100 MB. This parameter specify the maximum size of the security audit file. If the size is reached, the system logging of audit event is completed. That means once the 100 MB is reached, this is a very important information. Once the 100 MB is reached, then it will stop logging the audit files. It will not create an additional file, or it will not override the file. It will stop logging the file. The reason behind that is it cannot keep it growing. So if it keep it growing, then you don't know what size it's going to be. Then it can pile up the whole operating system and your system will come to a standstill. That's the reason after 100 this will stop logging the audit logs. So be careful what you are going to log. Yeah, so it will stop that. This is, yeah, basically this is designed like that for the reason what I said. The system should not come to standstill just because of audit log is enabled. Okay, let's go to the next one. For this one we will keep the standard value 100 M, so we don't change anything. Next one is maximum disk space per day. It is 0. This is parameter specify the maximum disk space per day. This is by default it is 0. As you know, this is an optional one. At the moment we don't specify anything here, just leave it like that. Then next one is also optional. Then slots. Let's see how many slots we have. Okay, minimum is 2, maximum is 10. At the moment it's in 2, so we will just leave it like that. Now once we have enabled the audit log, you need to restart the SAP system. Okay, So I will restart the SAP system. After that we will continue this discussion again. So we restarted our system. Let's go to reset 11. Then put the parameter, say display. Okay, right now you can see this profile value is 1. Okay, that means it is enabled. Okay, so we did our first step. Profile is enabled. Now we need to configure a filter. Okay, let's go and configure a filter. To configure the filter, the transaction code for configuring audit log is SM19, SM19. Transaction code is SM19. So once you go to SM19, come to this screen. Now we need to create a profile. Right now there is a test profile which is created by us. Let's say, okay, we can use the same profile. If you want to create a new profile, say create, let's create a new profile, is better. Security underscore training 2. Okay, so this is our profile. I create a profile. In this profile, as you see, by default we got 2 slots, 2 filters. Okay, let me see the next one. Let the first one filter. What I will do, I will log in all SAPstar, for example, user SAPstar. Okay, because SAPstar is one of the very critical one. I want to log everything. The events you can say all, or you wanted to log in only the serve and critical, or you can say only the critical one. For SAPstar I will say everything. Then let's go to the second filter. Second filter, what I will do, for my productive system I will say 800. Then we will select only dialog logon and transaction start, only this much. I'm not going to log anything else. Okay, so this also filter active, both of the filter is active. Then I need to save this. So once you save this one, we got a prompt message say, do you want to distribute this configuration to all servers? Meaning to say, let's assume that you have more than one application server. So do you want to distribute this configuration to all application server? The reason is, right now if you see here, you have only static configuration. So we will come to that once you enable this, and you will have one more called dynamic configuration, where you can enable individual application server. So right now it will give you an option that you wanted to configure to all servers. This again, it's up to you. If let's say you have one application server, or then this is again up to you, up to your configuration. Then you may be thinking, what is the difference? Why do we need to do that? Let's say in a bigger system, so I mean the bigger system, I keep referring bigger system means the system which has more than 5,000 users, or you have more than 1,000 concurrent users. It's a huge systems. So in this kind of systems, let's say you have one or two application server which is dedicated only for background jobs. All the background jobs, the scheduling background jobs, you will use it there. So you need to make a call that whether to have audit log in that server, is it make sense, or is it necessary, the information which is you have no interest on that. So you can disable that that kind of servers, or you don't want to enable audit log in that kind of servers. That is still possible. That's the reason this option is there, that you can enable for all servers, or you can enable for specific servers. In our case, let's say all servers, yes. So once you enable that, then you can see there's a dynamic configuration. Here you can enable and disable for specific servers. Right now this audit profile is not active. If you want to activate it, you can simply say activate. That will activate this profile. Let's say if you go to dynamic configuration, you can activate it for each server. Then you can have all the servers and select the server and say click activate. This is for deactivate. Individual server you can activate and deactivate the file size. Right now we started, you can see our actual maximum file size what we are supposed to have, it is 10 MB. Right now the file size is already 2 MB. Okay, let me go here and say activate it. So right now the profile security trainer is active. Okay, so in 800 I am logging all the users dialog log on and transaction started, and the SAP star is logged into all the clients. Okay, now this is active. Then detail of this filter, if you select here, right now you have everything is activated. You can select the filters only what is required. If you think that there is something which is not required, then we can deselect it. Otherwise you can select only critical, as we seen before. If you say only critical, then you can select detail of log will be only critical. And if you select the next option, serve and critical, this here it's like important as well as critical, but the non-critical will not be logged. So if you select all the non-critical also will be logged. So this is the way to enable the audit log. Right now the audit log is running. Let me see. So it's active. So let's log into one of the client as with SAPstar. So I will log into this client with SAPstar client 001 SAPstar. Do some activity. Right now I logged in. Then let me do some activity. Okay, let's go to SUIM. Here I will go to user with unsuccessful logon. So I try to run some report. Let's come back and go to SU01. And let's take our security underscore trainer user, change I will change the validity of this user to some date. (2015) let's say. Okay, then save. Now I will also not locked. Let me lock this user. Right now this user is locked. Then I will unlock this user. Okay, now this is unlocked. Okay, now the user is unlocked. Okay, now let me go back. As you've seen, maybe I can go back and show you once again. When you lock the user, okay, now if you go to logon data, now you can see the user is locked. This is a way to check the log whether the user is locked. Otherwise also you can see it in USR02 table. Otherwise you simply click here, you can see the locked by system manager. You can see whether it is locked or unlocked. When you say unlock, it will unlock the user. Okay, so we did some activity in client 100 with the user SAPstar. Okay, now let's come out from this. Let's go back to our client 800. So it should log everything, all the login for let's say security student B. We have so many user. Seems to be problem. Let's use some another user, student 4. Okay, so I don't know what the user had some authorization. Let's start some transaction SU53. So we run some other transaction, maybe SU01. Okay, they don't have access. Let's try some another user, maybe the trained user itself, SU01. Okay, let's try some more user. .800 security trainer student A. Let's see, 38, let's see, 16. Now we have done quite a lot of activities in our system. Okay, now let's go back and continue our presentation. Okay, we have configured, we have filtered, we have activated. Now we know what is dynamic configuration. Now we know how to define filters. Now audit analysis. Now we have done all the changes, we filtered everything. Now we need to analyze the activities what we have done so far. We have logged into system, SAPstar is logged in, and some activities what we have done. Now how to analyze this? To analyze that, we have a transaction code which is SM20. So for configuration we will use the transaction code SM19 SM19, and for analyzing this audit log we will use the transaction code SM20. So let's go to the system. So this is our system. We are in the user, okay, security trainer. Let's go to the transaction SM20. So in this screen you can read all the audit logs. In a typical scenario you need to define what is the audit logs, or what are all the audit logs which you wanted to read, because your audit log going to be quite huge. Let's say right now we have our audit log file will be quite small. Let's say if you go to SM19 and let's go to dynamic configuration, you can see our audit log is at the moment only 16 MB. 16 MB is very small. Even the activities what we have done so far, it's very small, so that itself is taken 16 MB. So if you see in a system which has more than 1000 users working at the same time, then you can see how this is growing. So let's go back to our transaction SM20. Here you can read audit log for specific system. So you need to select which system you wanted to read, and you can collectively put all the audit logs together and start reading it. First thing is you need to specify you are going to read audit log for which date. Okay, which date and which time. As I said, you need to filter it out, otherwise this audit log is going to be quite big. Then here you can see which events you wanted to read, and same like our SM19, you can filter based on what you like to read. So right now let's assume I wanted to see the SAPstar, what we have done with SAPstar. Sorry, our client was star and the user was SAPstar. Okay, so I want to read only this SAPstar, which is for today 002 23 00 or 00. Okay, then I will say read audit log, and you can have extras like you can specify the specific terminal which you have logged in or the specific transaction code which was run or program. The reason is that if you run the audit log, then you will see how the audit log look like. That if it is quite big, then you will not be able to identify what was the transaction, which terminal. Then you can filter it and kind of format. You can create an ALV layout and ALV grid. You can define a variant and say, okay, you want it in a ALV grid or ALV list. Then you can see the output based on that. And statistics, you can see what statistics, if you wanted to enable, you can enable the statistics. So let's make it quite simple now. Let's say all client. I wanted to see what happened in the user SAP star. So select this and say read audit log. Now you can see the details. So log on was successful on this date and this time. SAP star in the terminal server I5. This is the terminal which logged in. Then if you double click here, here you can get the detail of the login message. It says log on successful type A. Type A means log on using SAP GUI. Yeah, background job start means type B. Like this you have different types. So we need to understand how to read the audit log. So you have type B, which is background job start. H means HTTP logon for the ITS servers, and U is user switch. This is for internal calls, internal RFC calls. Let's say you use another switch, call an internal program with a different user switch, then will come as U. This is like a double quote is a password check for API internal call. Okay, let me close this. So we logged on, then we started a report, some report. Yeah, then this report look like it's coming from transaction session manager. This report is again a report which is called by session manager. Session manager means as soon as you log on, the first session, the logon section is called session manager. So the transaction code, when you see the session manager, that means it's not a real transaction code, it's the first initial logon screen. So initial logon screen, there is some report which is run. Then we go to transaction code SUIM. Then in the SUIM we started a different report, and this was the report initially started. That means the first program was this one. Then the same SUIM which run another program like this one, second program. Then we go to some transaction code. This is a transaction code and this is a program. So if say this is also a transaction code, let's say, okay, let me show you. If you say /o, put the transaction code, it will directly go to that specific program. So if you can see, this directly goes to the same report we started. So this is the transaction code for that specific report, and this was the program which was called. And then we went to SU01 and we did some transaction start, and then we also did some user master change. As we seen in our previous slides, we need to understand what all the activity this will log. So we have seen dialog log on. So far we couldn't see an RFC call because we did not execute anything in RFC. Then we seen when it is logged on and transaction start and report start, user master change. So whenever you do any changes in the user master, that is also recorded. Yeah, and other events and system events. Okay, here we can see also some RFC calls. Say CPIC logon, SAP star logged into, let me double click here. I don't know what is type F. Okay, for an internal call, it did an internal call to some another program which is system related, and it also did something else. Let's see what is that. I don't know. Okay, this is an execution of some function module. So you can also see the user master data changes here. Okay, let's see the next filter what we have done for the client 800, for example the 800. Okay, so user was security star. We wanted to see only the user security star. You can filter it based on that. Read audit log, then we can see. Okay, this is the changes what we have done. We have done some critical changes. Okay, here you can see what was changed in the audit log itself. We went to the trainer one, gone to SM19 and did some audit log configuration changes. Then slot 1 did some changes, then some changes. Audit log, like we filtered for 800. Then you can see the student B session logon failed. Yeah, then you can see it was a dialog logon. The student tried to log in. The reason is 1 means incorrect logon data. That means client username and password, so something was incorrect, so we didn't know the password. So you can see this kind of information. This is a very good information to come to a conclusion and what this user is trying to do, and you have all the detail. So like this we have very detailed report and what the user was trying to do. This is a very good information to see what the user was trying to do. Okay, we tried 2 times, then we tried with student 4 and it was successful. Then we tried some transaction SU01. Then the student 4 tried to run a transaction code SU01. Sorry, the student tried to run a transaction code SU53, which was successful. Then student tried to run a transaction code SU01. Then this is failed, and the reason is 6. Let's see what is 6. User does not have authorization for this transaction. So you can see all the transactions started and what is not started also, and we can also see what was the reason. And student 4 logged off. Then trainer 1 started SU01 and did some changes, and then you have student A which is logged on and tried to run so many transactions, and student A logged off. Then trainer 1 goes back and do lot of things, and you have all the details what is really required for a security administrator or an auditor to find what is going on in the system. And let me remind you again, let's say for example we went to this transaction VA01 and VA02, and but this will give only the transaction start. It does not give you what happened inside the system. That is not in our logging filters or in our logging classification. So you will not get what happened in VA01. Let me make it very clear. Let's say you create sales order in VA01. What is the sales order number? What was changed in the sales order? That you will not get in audit log. That VA01, it will give you the information that this particular transaction was started. So what went inside the transaction, that you have to go in the nitty-gritties of VA01 and find out. Okay, so this is the way to check the audit log. And let's enable some statistics. For example, let's say client and user. Let me go back and say star and say again star. So again in the statistics we enable something and say display statistics. Then you know client 800, total number of events, this many number of events, and users, these are all the users which has the log. We can, based on this, you know what kind of statistics we can find it here. Let's say I only want users, say display statistics, and these are all the users which has the log or one way or the other in our report. So like this we can have statistics and file statistics. Here we can see what is the status of the file. So let's say this presently in this one, this is the file presently which is available. So we can see the file statistics, display log, which is almost the same. This is reread the audit log. This is just read the audit log, means which is already in the buffer. Okay, this is the way to read the audit logs. Then let's go back to our presentation. We already seen the report, how to find it. And next important thing is deleting old audit log. Now we created some audit log file. Please remember that this is a file which is not overwritten or which is not deleted. Okay, it is always recommended to archive this audit log file in a regular basis. You archive this and put it somewhere else. So if you wanted to save it, use this process to delete the old audit log. It is recommended you need to delete the old audit log, otherwise it's going to occupy the space. The reason is, as we seen, this audit logs are raw files. Yeah, so it is going to occupy quite amount of space in your operating system. In this session we are going to discuss about deleting the old audit logs. This again depends on your requirement, whether you want to delete it or you wanted to archive it. So the recommended approach is that you archive your audit log on a regular basis and keep it in a safe place. Okay, maybe some of the audit logs after some time, okay, we can still see, okay, once you finish the auditing everything is fine. If you decide to delete, you can delete it. It's again based on the policy what we are going to define. But the main point here is that we need to archive or move or delete from that original place, because as you know, every day this is going to create, for example in our setup, every day this is going to create 100 MB file, one file. Okay, again this again based on how many servers what you have, so it's going to create that number of files. So the recommended approach is to archive. After that, if you wanted to have delete it, you can delete this one. For this, SAP also provide you a tool that you can delete the log file, but remember one thing, this the SAP does not give you an option for archiving this file. This is for deleting the file, so you have to be careful of how you are going to manage this one. Let's go to our system. Here if you go to tools, then go to administration and go to monitor, then security audit log, SM18. Okay, go to SM18, then you can say security audit log, delete old audit log. So minimum age 30, that means 30 days, only on the active instance, or okay, simulation only. If let's say for only simulation, let's try to run it. So we have right now we have nothing, we have 0, we have only 2 audit log files which presently running. So if you remove this one, then it will delete. So this will not archive, it will delete the files. Okay, this is one option what we have, but it is 30 days is quite long. So normally let's say if you 3 days which you wanted to keep it, I think it's more than enough. Anything which happened or which something happened more than 3 days, you can archive it into some other location, meaning you do not want to keep it in the SAP active locations. Okay, this is about organizing your audit log. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, with this we are coming to the end of the session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session. Bye bye.